Have you ever fallen so deeply and so quickly that the intensity frightened you? Have you ever found yourself completely enchanted by someone you barely knew, convinced beyond all reason that you'd finally discovered your soulmate, the person you'd spent your entire life waiting for? If you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It feels like destiny. In that moment, something inside whispers, "This is it. This is the one who makes sense of everything." It's as if you've stepped into a story written long before you were born, a tale of magnetic connection, instant recognition, and transformative love. But here's the unsettling question. Is the person you fell for so fiercely truly your destined partner? Or did you just fall deeply in love with the idea of them, the hidden fantasies and unconscious longings you've carried your entire life? Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychological minds in history, warned us about this exact phenomenon when he said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." When we fall in love, the chemistry feels magical and powerful beyond our control. But Jung believed that hidden behind this magic was often something we rarely acknowledge, a powerful unconscious projection. Each of us carries deep within our psyche a hidden image of our ideal partner, which Jung called the anima in men, or animus in women. This inner figure holds everything we deeply yearn for, but fear to admit or express openly: strength, gentleness, wisdom, passion. So when someone enters your life embodying that exact hidden blueprint, the pull is irresistible. Suddenly you find yourself convinced this person completes you. You're certain they've rescued you from loneliness, filled gaps in your identity, or healed emotional wounds you didn't even know existed. But what if the person you've fallen in love with isn't exactly who you believe they are? What if the soul-deep connection you feel isn't with the human being standing before you, but rather with a beautifully crafted illusion your mind has projected onto them? Maybe the deepest, most painful truth is also the most liberating, that the one you've so desperately loved, so fiercely pursued, and so passionately idealized was always a mirror, a reflection of the lost parts of yourself waiting patiently to be discovered. At first, everything feels perfect, doesn't it? Your lover's flaws seem charming, their quirks adorable. Every moment together feels like proof of some grand cosmic plan. But beneath this romantic haze lurks a disturbing possibility. What if you're not seeing the real person clearly? What if the perfection you sense isn't their perfection at all, but your own unconscious fantasies projected onto them? Carl Jung captured this unsettling truth brilliantly. Projections change the world into a replica of one's own unknown face. Think about that for a moment. Could your beloved simply be wearing a mask you've unconsciously handed them? A mask painted with your deepest dreams and hidden desires? If that's true, you're not truly loving another person at all. You're loving a fantasy, a reflection, a mirror. And mirrors, as beautiful as they can be, never reveal the full truth. They show us what we want to see, hiding as much as they reveal. Early in relationships, we willingly embrace these illusions because reality can feel harsh or disappointing. Perhaps you've felt that yourself, fighting desperately to preserve an ideal image, ignoring red flags, rationalizing away troubling behaviors, insisting that deep down your partner must surely be exactly who you want them to be. But the cracks inevitably appear. Arguments arise. Misunderstandings happen. And suddenly the person you once saw as flawless seems riddled with imperfections. Imperfect in ways that hurt deeply because your projected dreams depended on them being perfect. The philosopher and Jungian analyst Robert Johnson warned that romantic love built purely on projection creates impossible burdens no partner can fulfill. He said plainly, romantic love is essentially the projection of an ideal onto another person. It sets up an impossible demand that inevitably leads to disappointment. This disappointment is not simply emotional, it's existential. It shakes your faith in love itself, making you question if true intimacy is even possible. And when that beautiful illusion finally fractures, you're left confronting a haunting question. Was the person you loved ever truly there? Or was it always your own hidden self you were loving, reflected back to you? This might feel like a painful realization. But within this heartbreak lies a powerful opportunity, one that could transform your entire experience of love and relationships. Perhaps the breaking of illusions isn't just tragedy. Perhaps it's the first necessary step toward genuine, lasting love. Because when you finally recognize that you've been projecting, you open yourself to the greatest truth of all, that what you've desperately sought externally was always quietly, patiently waiting for you inside yourself. It's inevitable. At some point, reality begins creeping into your perfect fantasy, and suddenly the person you once saw as flawless and ideal begins to appear strangely human, complicated, unpredictable, and painfully imperfect. Each small imperfection, once charming, becomes increasingly difficult to accept. Arguments erupt from nowhere, resentment festers, and moments that used to be effortless and magical now feel exhausting and strained. You're left questioning everything. How did someone so perfect suddenly feel so wrong? Did they change overnight, or am I finally seeing who they've always been? Carl Jung saw this moment coming clearly, warning us about the shattering of our projected ideals. He described how, in relationships governed by the anima and animus, an intense battle unfolds between illusion and reality. The animus draws his sword of power, and the anima ejects her poison of illusion and seduction. What Jung meant was simple but profoundly uncomfortable. When reality challenges your projections, emotional chaos follows. You may start feeling betrayed, not because your partner deceived you, but because the ideal you projected onto them can no longer survive. And as the fantasy breaks apart, you feel as if something inside you is also breaking. Let me share a powerful example. Jungian analyst Robert Johnson once described the story of Jack and Betty, two lovers who felt a magnetic attraction, believing they'd finally found their soulmates. At first, their relationship felt fated, almost magical. Jack saw in Betty an ideal woman, soft and nurturing, everything he secretly longed for but couldn't admit. Betty saw in Jack the strong, steady protector she'd always dreamed of. They married quickly, confident their love was destined to last forever. Yet, as reality emerged, Jack began feeling trapped under Betty's emotional demands, suffocated by her intense expectations. Meanwhile, Betty felt abandoned, frustrated by Jack's emotional distance and inability to fulfill her deep need for reassurance and comfort. What they didn't yet understand was that they had never really been in love with each other. They had each fallen deeply in love with their own projected fantasies. Jack wasn't seeing Betty clearly, he was seeing his hidden inner woman. Betty wasn't seeing Jack clearly, she was looking at her hidden inner man. Both were unconscious of the roles they were imposing upon each other, causing intense frustration, disappointment, and pain. This isn't just their story, it's likely yours too. It's a story we all experience when we love through projection. And this realization isn't merely uncomfortable, it's devastating. Because now you aren't just losing someone you love. You're losing a deeply cherished illusion about who you thought you were. The illusion shatters like glass, leaving you to pick up pieces of yourself you never even realized had broken apart. But here's a surprising truth. The pain you feel in this moment, the deep, unbearable heartbreak, isn't just tragedy. It's an invitation. Carl Jung believed this painful realization was necessary for genuine psychological growth. We do not make projections, he said. They happen to us. This crisis isn't meant to destroy you, it's meant to awaken you. Your psyche is urging you to reclaim the fragments of yourself you've projected outward, forcing you to confront the shadowed parts you've hidden from yourself. The breakdown isn't simply the end of your love story. It's the beginning of your true story, the story of finding your way back to yourself. When the fantasy finally collapses, you're left with profound confusion. Your heart aches, your mind spins, and you're forced to confront the painful question, how could I have been so blind? This moment feels like a crushing defeat, but in truth, it's a powerful turning point. Carl Jung repeatedly emphasized that withdrawing projections, the difficult act of reclaiming your own hidden qualities, is essential to real psychological and emotional maturity. Think about the traits you admired most in the person you loved. Perhaps they were incredibly creative, deeply compassionate, wise beyond their years, fiercely independent. Now, for a moment, consider something deeply unsettling yet profoundly liberating. What if all these beautiful traits that made you adore your partner were qualities you've always carried secretly within yourself? Qualities you've never allowed yourself to fully express or even acknowledge? Jung taught that these powerful projections are, at their core, your unconscious mind begging you to reclaim your true inner richness. This isn't an easy journey. It means confronting parts of yourself you've kept hidden in shadow for a long time. It means acknowledging that the creative genius, the compassionate healer, or the courageous leader you saw in your partner was always a reflection of what you secretly carry deep within yourself. It means having the courage to look inward and say, yes, these qualities belong to me. I no longer need to beg someone else to embody them. Jung encouraged a practice he called active imagination, an exercise where you deliberately visualize and communicate with these hidden aspects of yourself. Imagine sitting in quiet meditation, meeting face to face with the inner figure you've spent your life projecting outward. If you're a man, perhaps it's the wise feminine voice that whispers to you softly, urging emotional openness, creative expression, vulnerability. If you're a woman, perhaps it's the calm, powerful masculine presence that offers steady reassurance, clarity, and inner strength. Ask them what they want from you. Often the answer is simple but powerful: recognition, acceptance, and integration. Remember the Persian Sufi tale of Layla and Majnun? Majnun loved Layla with obsessive intensity, so much so that he became known as the madman. His entire existence revolved around her image, even though their love remained unfulfilled in the earthly sense. Eventually, his passionate longing evolved from romantic obsession into mystical devotion. Layla became not merely a beloved woman, but a symbol of the divine itself. Majnun finally realized that what he sought outside was always inside him. The poet Rumi echoed this truth beautifully. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. Perhaps your painful experience of romantic disappointment isn't just about human relationships at all. Maybe it's your soul's deeper quest for inner union, a hidden spiritual call toward wholeness. By reclaiming your projected qualities, you're beginning what Jung called individuation, the sacred journey toward becoming fully who you truly are. This isn't about merely fixing broken relationships, it's about healing your very relationship with life itself. This road back to yourself may feel lonely at first, but you're never truly alone. The shadowed parts within you, the anima or animus that once caused emotional chaos, now become guides, mentors, allies. They patiently show you the path towards self-integration, inner harmony, and emotional freedom. The pain you feel right now isn't meaningless, it's purposeful. It's guiding you to rediscover yourself, not through the idealized eyes of someone else, but through clear, compassionate, courageous self-awareness. Jung famously wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is your privilege. Your heartbreak has become your awakening. The moment you reclaim your projections, the powerful, hidden qualities you once placed entirely in someone else's hands, is the moment you begin a profound inner transformation. Jung called this the sacred inner marriage, a psychological and spiritual union between your conscious mind and those previously hidden parts of yourself, the anima or animus. It's an awakening so deep, so transformative, it reshapes your entire understanding of love, intimacy, and your place in the world. If you've always projected gentleness, emotional openness, or creative expression onto your partner, this inner marriage asks you to finally embrace those qualities within yourself. If you've looked outside yourself for strength, courage, clarity, or decisiveness, the inner marriage urges you to find and cultivate those traits internally. It's as if your unconscious has been whispering to you all along, gently urging, stop seeking elsewhere what is already yours. The beauty, strength, creativity, and wisdom you desperately long for are already alive inside you, patiently waiting for you to claim them. Imagine just for a moment meeting the figure of your anima or animus directly. Jung taught the practice of active imagination, a technique where you visualize this inner guide clearly, engaging with them in conscious dialogue. Perhaps you meet them in a quiet room in your mind. Maybe your anima appears as a wise, compassionate woman whose eyes carry a gentle message of emotional truth. Or maybe your animus is a steady, courageous man whose presence fills you with confidence and clarity. When you sit quietly with them, listening deeply, you'll likely hear truths that have been waiting your entire life to emerge. They may say softly, "I am not separate from you, I am you. Embrace me, accept me, and you will finally feel complete." Through this inner marriage, your relationships are released from the impossible burdens of projection. You're no longer demanding perfection from your partner, nor are you expecting them to fill emotional gaps that you've refused to address within yourself. Marion Woodman, a celebrated Jungian analyst, beautifully described this moment of integration. When you finally embrace your inner man or inner woman, you cease to live behind a veil of illusion. You reclaim your life. The war within ends and true intimacy begins. The love born from this inner integration isn't flashy or dramatic. It doesn't rely on fiery passion or volatile ups and downs. Robert Johnson described it poetically as stirring oatmeal love, a love that might seem ordinary on the surface but is deeply nourishing, reliable and stable beneath. True love accepts human imperfections without bitterness, resentment, or disappointment. It celebrates reality, embracing both strengths and weaknesses with equal care and compassion. And this inner marriage changes how you show up in relationships. You're no longer desperate for validation or fearful of abandonment. Instead, you're emotionally present, steady, and deeply aware. You see your partner clearly, perhaps for the first time, not as an idealized fantasy, but as a beautifully flawed human being, deserving of love, respect, and acceptance precisely as they are. Your love becomes an offering, not a demand. You're choosing someone consciously rather than clinging desperately, and that makes all the difference. But this inner marriage isn't just psychological, it's also spiritual. The Persian poet Rumi famously wrote, "Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along." Perhaps your romantic disappointments, painful projections, and emotional wounds were never simply about earthly relationships. Maybe at their deepest core, they were spiritual invitations, quietly guiding you toward unity within yourself, toward reconnecting with something profoundly sacred inside your own heart. In mystical traditions, human love often symbolizes a deeper spiritual union, a divine marriage. The Persian story of Layla and Majnun echoes this truth vividly. Majnun's obsessive love for Layla transcended earthly boundaries, eventually transforming into mystical devotion. Layla, once merely a woman, became for Majnun a reflection of divine love itself. In the same way, your anima or animus, once projected onto another person, becomes a guide towards spiritual awakening and profound inner wholeness. In this realization lies true freedom. By finally reclaiming the love you projected outward, you discover something miraculous. The soulmate you longed for was always inside you. This sacred inner union sets you free not just from emotional dependency, but from existential loneliness. Now, wherever you go, you carry your completeness with you. You're no longer searching desperately for a savior, a rescuer, or someone to fulfill your hidden dreams, because you now understand clearly everything you've ever sought externally has always been waiting quietly within you. Once you've experienced the profound inner marriage of your anima and animus, your perspective on love and relationships shifts forever. You're no longer bound by illusions, projections, or unrealistic fantasies. Love becomes something you consciously create, not something you desperately chase. Now, relationships aren't about needing someone to erase your loneliness or to make you whole. They're about recognizing and celebrating wholeness together. Your love isn't diminished by the loss of illusion, it's enhanced by clarity, compassion, and genuine authenticity. You finally understand that true intimacy isn't about perfection or unending romance. It's about seeing clearly, choosing consciously, and committing deeply, even when flaws and imperfections are fully revealed. Genuine love is stable, calm, grounded, and secure. It nurtures rather than demands, supports rather than controls. Remember the wisdom from the Persian poet Rumi, lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. All those painful experiences of infatuation, heartbreak, and disillusionment weren't mistakes or tragedies. They were profound spiritual invitations, calling you home to yourself. They forced you to recognize that the love you sought in someone else was always quietly hidden within your own heart, patiently waiting to be discovered. Carl Jung believed that the ultimate purpose of life was individuation, the sacred journey of becoming who you truly are. And love at its highest expression supports this journey profoundly. Your partner isn't there to complete you, to fix you, or to make you whole. Your soulmate, the truest kind of soulmate, is someone who stands beside you consciously, compassionately, supporting your ongoing journey toward greater self-awareness and authentic self-expression. There's an ancient Sufi teaching about love and projection, that every external beloved is a reflection pointing us toward our inner beloved, the divine within. Majnun, whose love for Layla began in passion and ended in mystical devotion, learned that what he sought externally was already inside him, an expression of divine unity waiting to be realized. This spiritual truth resonates deeply with Jung's teachings. The outer projection of anima or animus is ultimately a pathway toward inner enlightenment. And this is precisely the kind of love you're now ready to experience. Not a love trapped in fantasy or illusion, but a love fully awake, fully aware, deeply human, yet profoundly sacred. You understand clearly now that your partner can never save you from yourself, nor should they. Your partner is not your savior. They are your mirror, reflecting your inner world back to you, guiding you toward greater clarity, authenticity, and wisdom. In the end, this journey you've undertaken through love, illusion, heartbreak, and self-discovery was always guiding you toward a powerful truth that genuine intimacy requires deep courage, relentless honesty, an unconditional acceptance of yourself and your partner exactly as you both are. Love doesn't erase your flaws, it embraces them. Love doesn't rescue you from loneliness, it shows you how to be at peace with yourself. Perhaps your most painful heartbreak, your deepest disappointments, your most confusing illusions weren't tragedies at all, but profound opportunities for awakening, self-integration, and true intimacy. As Carl Jung beautifully said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This is your privilege now, to love and to live beyond projection, beyond fantasy, into a world illuminated by authenticity, clarity, and profound emotional freedom.